Yo, what's up, everybody? It's El Sav, and today we're going to do something a little different than I've ever done before. And as you can probably tell by the title, we're going to be talking about my favorite music from the past year, more specifically, my favorite albums from the past year. Now, normally I'm just posting my music or things relating to my music, but I'm a fan just as much as I am an artist, so I kind of want, to talk about what I enjoyed the past year, and maybe I'll put you on to something you haven't heard, or maybe you'll find something that you've been listening to that I have too. Now, before we get into it, I want to say that I'm not going to be ranking them. I'm not putting them in order about what's the best, whatever. I'm just going to give you, I think I'll put down like 8, 9, something like that of my favorite projects from the year. I'm going to talk about what I like about them and, like my favorite songs from them, stuff like that. So, let's get into it. So the first project I'm going to talk about is Russ, Shake the Snow Globe. And now, anybody that knows me on a personal level knows that I am like the biggest Russ fan in the world. I love Russ, everything that he's about, everything that he says about just how to attack like life in general and the music game, everything like that. But I'm also like, I'm a big fan of his music too. So this album, Shake the Snow Globe, was definitely one of my favorites of the year. It dropped at the start of the year. And personally, I just think this is his best work in terms of an album. His first album, There's Really a Wolf, kind of was good. I enjoyed it, but it felt like kind of like a collection of just singles. Really, it didn't feel as much like an album. And then his second album, I felt just kind of lacked the kind of catchiness and pop sensibility that I feel like Russ's music works best with. And even though he was talking about some more personal stuff, I just feel like it didn't have the same replay value that his previous work had. And that's why I think this new album, Shake the Snow Globe, just was a perfect merging of the two worlds of that. You had the catchy songs on there with the hooks and everything, but then he also was getting introspective in those songs and could really, grab you in with what he was saying and how he was saying it. I think the album from start to finish just felt like a complete thought. A perfect vibe was just set from track one to the end of the album. It just all felt complete all the way through. You really got the sense of how he wanted you to feel while listening to the album, and it was just a complete thought, complete vibe carried through every track on the album. Now, my favorite tracks on the album are the first track, Need a Minute. That's my favorite track on the album. I love that song. I remember when that song first came on and like the hook come in, I was just laying there listening to it and I was like, yo, like I was so happy because I could tell like this was about to be fire. And I really like Need a Minute. I really connect with like what he's saying on it and everything, and I just like the songwriting on it too. I think the hook's real catchy, and the content of it is just something that I can really connect with. I also like the song Asshole with Boogus. That's a good song. I like again, what he's talking about on the hook. That's a big thing for me with Russ, is just when he's got a catchy hook and something that you can easily sing along to, that just draws me in a lot. But I like that song a lot. I also like the song Shots. And I know this is a bonus track, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. But Civil War, I think that's one of the best songs Russ has ever made. And I think it's just a perfect balance of what makes a good Russ song. It's an easily relatable topic, and it's just so catchy that I really think that's one of Russ's best songs, and it should be platinum. I don't think it is, but it should be. So, Russ, Shake the Snow Globe. Go check it out. My next favorite project that I'm going to talk about is Machine Gun Kelly with Tickets to My Downfall. Now, MGK is a guy that I'm really liking his new direction. I wasn't a huge fan of when he was really like just rapping, but his new direction I'm really a fan of. Now, I'm not typically into this kind of music, like, kind of rock stuff. I'm not really usually into that, but for some reason, I love this album. This was one of my favorites of the year, like, probably top 3, something like that, favorite albums of the year. This album, for some reason, I played it nonstop for weeks when it came out, and I still go back to it now. I just think everything about it, specifically for me, I guess, someone that's not really into rock, the album has something about it that can draw you in and make you enjoy that kind of music, even if you're not really a big fan of the genre. Just because I think it's catchy, it's got a lot of rhythms and songwriting stuff that is like not totally foreign to a lot of other music that's out right now, and it just, I don't know, when you put it on, you just have a good time listening to it. Songs like the title track, Kiss Kiss, Drunk Face, that's my favorite song on the whole album, is Drunk Face, that's my shit. But those first three tracks on the album, I just all feel like they just give you this real fun vibe when you're listening to them, and when you're partying or just, you know, you're riding in the car or whatever, you can just, you put it on, you just feel like you're having a good time, you're carefree, and it's just overall a fun listening experience. And it was definitely one of my favorite albums of the year, and something that I listened to a lot. So next up we have Circles by Mac Miller. Now, it's, when I was sitting down to make this list, it's kind of funny, I didn't think Circles would be on there. Which is funny because I'm a huge Mac Miller fan. Mac Miller's one of my favorite artists, but I didn't think Circles would make the list just because I felt like overall I didn't enjoy it like a whole ton. I didn't like think it was whack or anything. I just didn't feel like I was listening to it that much. But then when I went back and I looked at the track list and I realized how many of those songs that I do listen to, it had to make the list, because I was like, wow, I listened to this album more than I thought. I think Circles, if you were a Mac Miller fan, you couldn't have asked for anything better from a posthumous album than this. I mean, this was just, it was so well put together, and everybody did a nice job with preserving Mac's original vision and finishing what was left unfinished. And I just think it was nice because it's mainly, there's not a lot of rap on it, and I like when Mac does that kind of, you know, turn away from hip-hop. It's enjoyable, and I think my favorite songs on the album kind of reflect that. Once a Day, that is my favorite song on there, I think. Once a Day, oh no, sorry, Surf is my favorite song on the album, but Once a Day is right up there with it. That's a song that I remember hearing at his Celebration of Life a few months before the album came out, or would have been like a year before the album came out. Once a Day was played at his Celebration of Life, and I remember playing the snippet a bunch of times, so when it was actually released on the album, I was super excited. Surf is my favorite on the album. That is, when I go back to listen to the album, that is the song that I put on first every time. Just, I don't know, it just gives me this feeling of like I am at a beach or something like that, and I'm just kind of existing in this carefree state. So Surf is one that I'm always returned to. And then Good News, the single off the album. Good News is, I mean, that's just a great song. There's not a lot I can say about it that hasn't been said. It's good news. It was good news to hear that song. The next project I want to talk about is probably my favorite album of the year. Either this or the MGK album. But it's up there for sure. And it's one that I've been campaigning for ever since it dropped. I've been telling my friends, anybody I'm talking to about music, you got to go listen to this album. You got to go check it out. And it's Limbo by Amine. Now, Amine is a guy that I've been a fan of pretty much ever since he dropped Caroline, but I think too many people write him off as just the Caroline guy. But if you actually like go listen to his catalog, he's got dope music on all his projects. And so I was really excited for this album. When Shimmy dropped back at the top of the year, the single, I really liked that song, and it had me very intrigued about what this album was going to be. And it was originally supposed to drop then, but because of the virus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was pushed back. But I was a fan. I was a fan of Amine, so I was excited regardless. But the single was also super dope, so I was like, okay, you know, this is probably going to be a pretty good project, and I couldn't be more happy with what I got. Limbo is just an album that I'm probably going to be playing for a while. I return to it often, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. And I just think from start to finish, it is just completely like I am in the world of the album, if that makes any sense. I don't know. It just takes me to a place that I feel like I'm living within this album, and you know, maybe it's because of the memories I have associated with the album of when it came out. You know, it was a good time. I was hanging out with all my friends. It was summertime, stuff like that. But there's something about this album that just, it gives me an overall feeling that other albums haven't gave me. And I really enjoy that about it. I think the songwriting on it was super dope. I think Amine really expanded his artistic horizon here. Like, he really tried to push himself in different directions and do different things that he hasn't done before, and it came out really well. But he still remained true to himself, and you know, gave you something that you would expect from an Amine song, but kind of the next step in his progression. And that's something I really liked about the album. I think the features were really well placed too, such as JID, and Young Thug's feature even was really good. But let's talk about the JID feature for a second, because the song Roots is one of my favorite tracks on the album. Roots has JID and Charlie Wilson on it, and the JID feature is just out of this world, and it really has me excited for his next project. Not that I wasn't already, but just you get reminded how good JID is. But his flow on this verse is just crazy. The way how he's going from, you know, a regular style kind of rap flow, and then about midway the 2/4 of the way through his or 2/3 rather, 2/3 way through the verse, he switches up his flow and kind of goes into that, like, I don't got TikTok time for them. Like, that switch up just floats on that beat, man. It is crazy. And I really think JID just, again, showcases the potential and everything that he has as an artist. You know, that's not to take away from Amine or anything on this record, because, you know, he did his thing too. But just JID really killed it on there. But I do like how the album has touches of kind of a more sing-songy R&B type feel to it. But then also has songs like Shimmy, like Woodlawn, that are just, you know, straight rapping, straight flexing type songs, you know. And Woodlawn is probably my favorite song of the year from anybody. Woodlawn's one that I listen to all the time. I constantly return to Woodlawn and listening to it probably about once a week, so at least once a week. And usually if I listen to it once, I'm going to play it again. But I'm listening to the album probably every week. I like it that much. I just put it on shuffle and I let it play. You know, driving in the car, really goes in the whip. But yeah, it's not a perfect album. I do think there are a couple songs that could be left off the track list. Probably this one with Summer Walker. I didn't really care for that one. And I'm not crazy about Mama or Becky either. But or not Mama, sorry, I take it back. I like Mama, sorry. I am not crazy about Becky or Fetus. Those two tracks near the end of the album I'm not crazy about, but they're not, you know, unlistenable by any means. You know, some other people might like them. Just personally, I didn't get down with them as much as I did everything else on the album, because I like everything else on the album so much. But my favorites on this album are going to be, as I mentioned, Woodlawn, Roots, and probably Pressure in My Palms. I think Vince Staples really has some funny ass lines on his verse where he says he hate a bitch to think a baby, Vin to keep it, dude. That was really funny. I just think that was perfect Vince Staples right there. Peak Vince Staples, just saying some funny ass shit, but meaning it. You know, just being serious when he says it. But yeah, overall, super dope album. Really like it. Pretty much like every track on the album. And it's one that I'm recommending to everybody I talk to. And if you haven't heard it, definitely go check it out. And yeah, Amine, Limbo. No Pressure by Logic. Logic is a guy that I've been super critical of over his last releases. Pretty much all of his releases except maybe the first Bobby Tarantino, which even then, going back to that, I don't like as much. But Logic, I feel like, has just been super subpar in his writing, his bars, his song structure, his songwriting. It just all hasn't connected very well for me. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. But he got back with No ID for this new project, and it's supposedly his last album. I don't believe it, but here nor there. No Pressure was definitely an album that benefited from that connection with No ID, and the production on this album really is what makes it work for me. The production on this album was so good that like most of the beats, I was like, yo, these beats are crazy. And I think that's what really gave me the replay value for the album, because Logic held his own. Like he wasn't so bad or anything that it was unlistenable, even though the beats were good. Logic did just enough to ride the beats nice, to not really say anything too egregious or anything like that, and just kind of, did his thing. He did all right, and, didn't try to do too much like I think sometimes he tries to do. And this album was really enjoyable because of that, combined with the super dope production. And I'm glad it came out that way, because I think Logic's a good guy, and I'm glad that this album was pretty good. I think my favorites on the album are the intro track, No Pressure intro. That one hits really hard right out the gate. After that, I think my favorite would be Heard 'Em Say. That one's dope. And my third favorite track is probably going to be Celebration. I really like that song a lot. But again, super dope project. I'm glad it came out that way for Logic. And yeah, No Pressure, Logic. Now guys, I'm going to do some honorable mentions now, and these are albums that like I didn't feel like I got quite the same level of enjoyment out of as I did the other albums that I actually put on the list, but they were still albums that, I did listen to, a decent amount throughout the year, and got, some favorite songs from them and stuff like that. So I'm going to put these up on the screen. These are the honorable mentions. Let's do it.